found him a quarter-mile from the cave. Wenger was standing in the middle of the road, motionless, his portfolio pressed against his chest like a shield. The bare earth began 20 paces ahead of him, that vast circle of steaming, snowless ground that had doubled in size since morning. Heat rose from it in visible ripples, distorting the gray hills beyond into something liquid and uncertain. He was not walking anymore. He was listening. Marta slowed from a run to a walk, then stopped 10 paces behind him. Her breathing came hard, and the cold air burned in her lungs, but the cold ended here. The boundary between winter and the warm circle was sharp as a knife's edge. Snow on one side, dark, breathing earth on the other. Herr Wenger. He did not turn. His head was tilted slightly, the way a man tilts his head toward music he cannot quite identify. "Can you hear it?" he said. His voice was dreamy, disconnected. "It is the most reasonable sound I have ever heard. It says that none of this matters, the talks, the war, the burned villages. It says there is a simpler arrangement beneath all of it, and if I just go a little farther, I will understand." Marta took a step closer. The warmth of the ground pressed through her boots and into her bones, and with it came that familiar pull, the hum, deeper now, resonant with something that felt almost like tenderness. It wanted her to walk forward, too. It wanted everyone to walk forward. She resisted. That is not reason, that is allure. How do you know the difference? Because reason does not ask you to abandon everything and walk into a cave in winter. Wenger laughed. It was a thin, brittle sound. "I have already abandoned everything. When I told you about Brandt, I signed away my career. If I return, the Count will dismiss me or worse. Brandt will know I spoke. He always knows." He finally turned. His face was drawn and gray, his eyes red-rimmed, but beneath the exhaustion she saw something that frightened her more than despair. Relief. The relief of a man who has decided to stop fighting. Down there, at least, there are no more choices. There are always choices. That is the one thing I have learned this week. Easy for you to say. You are the Lord's daughter. You have a home to return to. A home with serpents in the hearth and frost that grows in spirals and a father who does not sleep. Marta took another step. She was close enough now to see the sweat on his brow despite the cold air at their backs. "Herr Wenger, my father wants to hear what you told me. He wants to present it to both envoys openly. Not as an accusation against Saxony, as evidence that both sides have been manipulated." Something shifted behind his eyes. Both sides. Brandt serves neither your king nor theirs. The burned villages are real. The courier's redirection was real, but the purpose was not Swedish advantage or Saxon humiliation. The purpose was to make certain that every person in that hall chose hatred over patience. The hum intensified. Marta felt it climb her spine and press against the base of her skull, and for a moment the world tilted. The hills leaned toward her, the cave mouth gaped wider in her peripheral vision, and she heard or felt a flicker of displeasure. Not the amused recognition from the chasm, something sharper. She was interfering, and the thing below had noticed. A viper emerged from the bare earth near Wenger's feet, then another. They coiled around his ankles without tightening, their copper eyes fixed on Marta. She held very still. "They have been following me since I left the estate," Wenger whispered. "Guiding me. They stayed just ahead on the road, and when I slowed, they waited." "They are not guides. They are a current, and you are drifting in it." She extended her hand. "Come back with me." "And say what? Accuse a man whose face I cannot remember of writing letters in a script no one can read. Lindqvist will laugh. Von Dessau will deny it. Then we show them the script itself. You said you saw the letter." "I saw it. I cannot produce it. It was in Brandt's room." "Then we find it." Wenger stared at her outstretched hand. The vipers at his feet shifted, tightening fractionally, and Marta saw his jaw clench as though resisting a whispered instruction. "Why does it matter to you?" he asked. "You are 16. This is a war between empires. Why do you care whether a secretary walks into a cave?" "Because every act of surrender feeds the chasm. Because every person who stops choosing makes the prison walls thinner. Because somewhere beneath this warm and humming ground, something ancient and broken is counting the moments until the last thread of human decency snaps and sets it free. She could not say any of that, so she said what was true in the simplest way she knew. Because you told me the truth in the kitchen garden, even though it frightened you. That cost you something. I will not let that cost be wasted. The hum surged. The ground trembled. One of the vipers at Wenger's ankles raised its head and hissed, not at Marta, but at the air itself, as though protesting something it could feel but not see. Then, slowly, the serpents uncoiled from Wenger's boots and slid away toward the cave mouth, their dark bodies vanishing into the steaming earth. Wenger took her hand. His grip was cold and damp and shaking. If Brant discovers what we are doing, then we will have discovered something about Brant in return. They walked back together. Marta kept herself between Wenger and the eastern hills, though she knew the gesture was more symbolic than practical. The hum did not diminish as they moved away. If anything, it grew clearer, as though the thing below had stopped trying to entice and started simply observing, cataloging their retreat with the patience of something that had waited for millennia and could wait a little longer. Halfway back, Wenger spoke again. There is something else I did not tell you, about Brant. Marta waited. 2 nights ago, I could not sleep. I walked the corridor past his room. The door was slightly open, just a crack. I looked through it. He swallowed. The room was empty. No furniture, no bed, no luggage, just bare floorboards. And in the center of the floor, a circle had been drawn in that same dark ink, spirals and curves, exactly like the letter. And in the center of the circle, the floorboards were warm. I could feel the heat from the doorway. A circle, Marta repeated. Her mind went to the carvings in the chamber, the figures standing in circles around the tall central form. I closed the door and went back to my room. In the morning, I checked. The room was furnished again. Bed, trunk, washstand, everything in place, as though nothing had happened. But when I touched the floor where the circle had been, the wood was still warm. So Brant was not merely an agent. He was a conduit, a point on the surface where the thing below could push through, project influence, perhaps even manifest in fragmentary ways. The spiraling script was not just a language. It was a mechanism, a way of thinning the barrier between the prison and the world above. They reached the estate as the last gray light drained from the sky. The courtyard was quieter than Marta expected. The Swedish carriages were still there. Lindqvist had not left. Through the great hall windows, she could see lamplight and movement. Wait here, she told Wenger, guiding him to the chapel porch. I will bring my father. She found Lord Henrik in his study, bent over maps he was not reading. He looked up when she entered, and the relief on his face told her he had been imagining worse outcomes than the one she was bringing. Wenger is here. He will speak, but there is more, father. She told him about Brant's room, the empty space, the drawn circle, the warm floorboards. She told him about the script-matching carvings she had seen in old monastery manuscripts, though she did not say where else she had seen them. Not yet. One impossible truth at a time. Her father listened without interruption. When she finished, he rubbed his face with both hands. You are asking me to confront a man in Count von Dissau's party, a man no one can clearly describe, with accusations of sorcery and sabotage, based on the testimony of a junior secretary and the observations of my 16-year-old daughter. I am asking you to tell the truth to both envoys and let them decide what it means. The truth, he almost smiled. Marta, in diplomacy, truth is the weapon no one knows how to use because no one has practiced with it. Then we practice now. He studied her for a long moment. She saw the calculations behind his eyes, the political cost, the risk of humiliation, the possibility that Lindqvist and von Dissau would unite in dismissing him as a provincial fool, dabbling in superstition. And she saw the moment he set those calculations aside, because the alternative was doing nothing while his province was devoured by something that rose from beneath his own hills. "Bring Wenger to the hall," he said. "I will summon both delegations." Marta collected Wenger from the chapel porch. He was sitting with his portfolio open on his knees, writing furiously by the light of a single candle someone had left burning at the saint's feet. "What are you doing?" "Setting down everything I remember, every detail, before it fades." He held up the page. His handwriting was cramped and urgent but clear. Dates, observations, the description of Brant's room, the redirected courier, the unknown script. "If something happens to me, this exists." She led him inside. The hall was being lit, servants moving along the walls with tapers, the long table cleared of its unsigned documents. Her father stood at the head, his posture straighter than it had been in days, though his limp was worse. He had put on his formal coat, the one with the silver buttons he wore for occasions that demanded authority he did not entirely possess. Baron Lindqvist entered first, irritated, his officers flanking him. He stopped when he saw Wenger and said nothing, a silence more dangerous than complaint. Count von Dissau followed. His eyes went to his secretary, and his expression locked tight. Lord Henrik gestured to the chairs. "Please sit. There is something you both need to hear. Not from me, from a man who has chosen honesty at considerable personal cost." Wenger stepped forward. Marta saw his hands trembling around the portfolio. She saw the moment he almost turned and fled. Then he opened the leather cover, set his written account on the table, and began to speak. Outside, unnoticed by anyone in the hall, the frost spirals on every window of the manor cracked simultaneously, not spreading but fracturing, as though something had struck them from beyond the glass. The hum beneath the floor rose sharply, then dropped to silence for the first time in days. In that silence, Marta heard a sound from far to the east, not the breathing from the chasm, not the hum. A single, clear note, like a bell rung once in the deep earth, its tone neither bronze nor stone, but something older than either. An acknowledgement, a promise that patience, however twisted, was not yet exhausted.